to my channel. My name is Nicole. I just started reading again as an adult in October, so last month. And I want to go ahead and do my wrap up of my first month getting serious about reading, and then also give you my November hopefuls. So this is my giant stack that we're going to go through, and I'm going to break down all the books that I read in October and go over all the books that I hope to get to in November. At the beginning of October, I took to Book Talk and I kept seeing ACOTAR everywhere. And I feel like everyone was saying that is like their most favorite series of all times. And I do know from reading in the past that I generally prefer whole series to just standalone book. It caught my interest because it's fantasy and it also is a large series and it's part of a bigger world of books. This was a strong start to get me into reading for sure. This is a book about fairies, and not just your Tinkerbell typical fairies. These fairies are more complex. There's a lot of different species and the world is very vast, and all the fairies are kind of separated into their own what they call courts, and so each one has their own lands that they live on. And the main character is Feyre. She is a human and she ends up finding herself mixed into these fairies, and she's thrown into their world and basically forced to become just a part of their world. And you get to follow her story of learning about the fairies. Are they good? Are they bad? What kind of things can they do? Is she going to be able to survive with them? How does all of that work? And it's extremely interesting if you like fantasy. There's also some romance in here, so if you're a romance person and you're looking for like a good bridge into fantasy, this is a great option. And I will just kind of give a disclaimer about ACOTAR, as far as it can be a little bit hard to get into. It is a little slow at first. I don't want that to just turn you away from the book because it has so much to offer. And when everyone says that the last 100 pages are it for this book, that is where everything comes together. The last 100 pages make the rest of the book worth it. And I know that that is a lot to go through, to try and read through all of the previous world building and then finally get to like the main meat of the story. But I wouldn't normally suggest that you continue to push through a book, but this one was awesome. The ending was great. I will say that if you don't like it by the end of it, you could just stop there. It doesn't end on a cliffhanger, but there is enough where you can continue on in the series. And so that's what I did. And then I moved on to A Court of Mist and Fury. This is the second book in the series. It picks up probably, I think it was like a couple months after the ending of ACOTAR, and it just jumps you right back into the world. I don't want to spoil any of the plot about this, but you continue on in the storyline and you follow Feyre as she continues her journey, and 100% this is a 5-star book for me. This was awesome. I found myself unable to put this down because there's so much happening. There's so much world building happening, a lot of fantasy, some romance, and it was just so much fun. A wild ride, and I highly encourage anyone, if you're looking to get into ACOTAR, definitely push through that first book, and this one definitely makes it all worth it. Continuing on, I am a Hunger Games fan. I got into reading from Hunger Games years and years and years ago. That is my like the story that got me involved in reading to begin with. And A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes has been out for a few years, and the 5th book has been announced. The 5th book will be coming out next year. I just was really slow in getting this picked up. I've had this on my shelf for a very long time, and I finally got around to reading it because I thought, why not just jump back into the world of the Hunger Games? This is a prequel to the actual Hunger Games trilogy, and if you haven't read the Hunger Games already, you don't have to read the original trilogy before you read this because it is a prequel. However, I would say that you should read the trilogy first because the trilogy does a good job of just building the world up and really introducing you to the Hunger Games and Panem and what the Hunger Games is all about. And then when you go back and read this 4th, it really shows you where the Hunger Games came from. This follows Snow. So the Snow is the president inside of the Hunger Games, and this is him as a student. So you get to follow his story. Where did he come from? What kind of life was he living? How did he help with the Hunger Games become what they are? It's really interesting to read this fourth because it really just helps with the world building, and there are some Easter eggs in here that it just helps you enjoy so much more if you've read the original trilogy. I decided to go ahead and read through a lot of the books on my shelves just to see what do I want to keep and what do I want to get rid of. And also, I have a toddler, so I want to read through a lot of my books to see what kind of information they have in them. Should she be reading certain things by a certain age? I want to moderate her books before she jumps into them. I am rereading a lot of the things on my shelves, and because I came from a dystopian background where I read a lot of dystopian, one of those was The Maze Runner. This was a series that I got into also when I was getting into the Hunger Games. And so this is a book about these kids who are dropped into a maze, and they're just dropped off one by one. They don't have any memory when they wake up, and they're slowly integrated into the group. And then they are just kind of pawned off on this maze. But the trick here is that the maze has these creatures that are really dangerous. And so these kids are having to fight for their lives and work together. You're trying to figure out the puzzle of what is going on. Why do they not remember anything? What is this world? What is this maze? Why are they there without any memories? Really interesting. If you're looking to get into dystopian, this is a great way to do that. It's a super easy read, and overall I definitely still enjoyed this. And the movie is also very comparable, but I will say that there's some details in here that you definitely miss in the movie, but overall they're pretty parallel. So I originally set a goal of reading 3 books in October, and I did 4 books, so I'm super proud of that. This month I want to challenge myself a little bit more, so we're gonna see how much I can do here, but these are books that I am hoping to get through in November. Continuing on with ACOTAR, we have ACOWAR, A Court of Wings and Ruin. Now this I'm almost done with, actually, so I definitely will be finishing this. I am on page 520 out of 700, so I definitely expect to be able to finish this in November. Again, this just follows Feyre's journey. It continues on. I don't want to give any more information because it would definitely spoil the story. I'm absolutely loving it. Just like A Court of Mist and Fury, I am definitely enjoying this as well. Super excited to see the finish of this because I'm getting really close. I've noticed that Sarah J Maas seems to really build things up for the last like 100 pages or so, and that's really where she gives her twists and turns in the most exciting parts of the book. So I'm really excited to finish this. The next book in the ACOTAR series is A Court of Frost and Starlight. Now this is a novella, so this is going to be definitely a shorter read. I definitely think that I can get this done in November, and then that's going to leave the final book, and I don't know when I'm going to get that done. I'm not going to put it on my plate for November, but I'm definitely really excited for it. I'm hoping to get through A Court of Frost and Starlight. I have no idea what it's about. All I know is that it's a novella, and just really excited to pick that guy up. Then continuing on, I want to reread The Hunger Games because I just read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This is just going to be a reread for me. I think I've actually read this a couple times, but it's definitely been a few years since I've read this last. Hunger Games is basically about a society that has been separated into different districts, and each district is in charge of a different resource that feeds the capitals. One is like wood, one is coal, one is water. So they each have their own thing that they're in charge of, and you follow one of the girls from the districts, which is Katniss, the famous Katniss Everdeen, and you follow her into the Hunger Games. The Hunger Games has been set up by the Capitol to just help keep the districts under control and keep them from rioting or uprising against the Capitol. So they take their children each year. They take one boy and one girl, and they throw them into an arena to fight to the death. This is, again, a really enjoyable way to get into dystopian. There's just a lot going on, and it's just very interesting. And this is the first book to start with in this series. And then the last book that I'm hoping to get to is The Games Gods Play. Now, I don't know much. All I know is I picked this guy up because it's absolutely gorgeous. It caught my attention on the shelves for sure, and I do know that this is about some Greek gods, and I haven't actually read Percy Jackson, but I know that's all about the different Greek gods. I just love the movies, and the TV show was really good. So this sounded really interesting to me because I'm wanting to really expand my horizons and just see what else is out there, because I've really only read a lot of dystopian, and now getting into ACOTAR, I'm slowly getting into fantasy. So I just really want to make sure that I am being open to different things and really figuring out what is my favorite genre, what is my favorite author, who do I like to read. This I'm really excited to pick up also. It sounds really interesting. The first couple lines of the summary are really intriguing. So it says, "The gods love to play with us mere mortals, and every 100 years we let them." That definitely caught my attention, and I am thoroughly intrigued. I do know that this is going to be a series also. So again, super excited for a series because I love to be able to really dive into a world. This is the first book in the series, and I think the second book has now been announced for next year. That is going to wrap up today's video. I am brand new to reading, and I would love to hear any suggestions that you might have about any books inside of definitely like the fantasy or dystopian space that you absolutely loved and I just have to read. Please leave them down below. I'm really trying to look to expand my reading and just really figuring out what genre and what author, what kind of writing style do I love. If you liked today's video, make sure that you hit that like button, and subscribing really helps my channel to grow. So thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video.